Hey guys, and welcome back to another match preview. And we've got Nick Kyrgios versus Khachanov in a rematch of their 2022 US Open quarterfinal, where Khachanov came out on top in a thrilling 5-set win. They're going to go head to head in Miami in round 2 of the Masters 1000 tournament. And I can't wait to get into it because Kyrgios has just won his first match in over 2.5 years in singles. For Khachanov, he's not quite playing his best tennis this year, so it could end up being a very competitive match. Maybe it might not be. Let's see. We're going to get into it. Before we do, though, remember that like button. Do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Also, please make sure that if you are watching on YouTube, you click that notification bell, but also make sure in your settings that you enable notifications on YouTube. Otherwise, even if you click the notification bell on our channel, you will not get alerted to any new uploads. Okay, let's get into it. So, Nick Kyrgios is a very divisive character, I think it's fair to say, in the tennis world, and there's lots of people that love him or hate him and everything in between. And that could be down to his personality, his game, etc. Now, in my opinion, I'm going to focus on the tennis. As a tennis player, and in terms of his style, in terms of his talent, massive fan. Massive fan. You know, I think he's so good to watch, brings great entertainment value, and also is extremely skilled as well. And he has an all-time great serve, I think it's fair to say. For Khachanov, he has, for the last few years, has been Mr. Consistent in a lot of ways. A lot of round of 16 quarterfinals, especially even at Masters 1000 and Grand Slam tour level. But this year it hasn't quite been the same. I mean, if we look at his year so far, Australian Open only third round, lost in Marseille first round, Qatar first round, Dubai second round or second match, because obviously he would have been seeded. Indian Wells, again, second match there, lost to Shelton. So hasn't made many deep runs, and this will be his first match in Miami. So Kyrgios could catch him cold. Kyrgios beat McDonald in the first round, came back from a set down to win in 3 sets, and the serve started to really pump in the second set onwards. 13 aces in the end. Interestingly, 79% of first serves made, 77% of first serve points won, only 46% behind the second serve. The serve did look a little slower, I have to say. I think he did take a little bit off it, I'm going to be honest, at times. And I don't think it was the case of him just hitting a slice serve or a kick serve. I think it was a conscious effort, and maybe to do with the wrist. I'm not sure. He might be a little bit cautious still around it, understandably. But he served well enough to get himself out of trouble, and it ended up being an elite level of serving in the second and third sets anyways, in terms of his spot serving, and his game really came on in those last 2 sets. I think from the back of the court, the power, the timing's there. We know that he's athletic as well. He's never going to be the best defender, even at his best, even at his peak. In 2022, he wasn't the best defender either, but we know that he can get around the court, he can slice and dice it, he has the variety, which is really important. We know it's a big part of his game, the drop shots, the lobs, the tweeners, I don't know how effective they are, and the no-look shots as well, which again, I think that's more entertainment rather than necessarily effectiveness, if I'm being honest. But his returning also looked quite good at times against McDonald, and that was a really big plus. Khachanov's a bigger server, so he'll have his work cut out for him there. And also, I think from the back of the court, Khachanov has more firepower, he's more consistent, hits with better depth than someone like McDonald. So he doesn't actually move as well as McDonald, who's a very good mover. So Kyrgios could potentially employ the drop shot a bit more. Against Khachanov, could use angles. I think that slicing and dicing at times is not a bad shout. I'm not a big fan of the Kyrgios forehand slice, if I'm being honest. I think it's almost a nothing shot at times. The backhand slice is good. I think the forehand slice should only be used when he's defending. And I think sometimes he just chucks it in there as variety. And to me, it just doesn't really do anything, especially on the ATP tour. Especially if it's a forehand slice that he kind of just knifes down the middle of the court. So yeah, I mean, look, I think it's an interesting matchup. A different One, in the sense that we've got two players who play quite different in terms of stylistically, so it's a good clash of differing styles. I think Kyrgios needs to redline on serve, if I'm being honest, because from the back of the court it's going to be difficult. I think he's going to have to be very aggressive off the +1 play off his serve. If he needs to hit that second ball, whether it be a forehand or backhand, we know that his backhands generally, historically speaking, has been extremely reliable, but so is Khachanov's. And as the points lengthen, as the point goes past the 3-shot mark, the probability of Kyrgios winning the point becomes less and less. And for Khachanov, it becomes more and more because his shot tolerance is better. And also, we have to remember, Kyrgios has not played a lot of tennis in the last few years. So to expect him to have good shot tolerance, given that at his best, his shot tolerance wasn't elite, to then now expect him to be able to match someone who's got world-class shot tolerance in Khachanov is a big ask, if I'm being honest. So he needs to play this match on his terms, serve well, be aggressive off the return, off the second serve return especially. Make sure, that if he does engage in a rally that goes more than a couple of shots, that the variety's there to at least keep Khachanov at bay, make sure that he's not playing into his hitting zones, into his rhythm. Khachanov's a big guy. He doesn't want to go down low and hit a backhand, at ankle height. It's not ideal. And then he needs to just take his opportunities when they come, Kyrgios. Calculated risks are going to be really key here, because in those longer points, which there will be some of them, of course, he will need to then step on the gas as soon as an opportunity presents itself. And that means picking the right moment. So shot selection is going to be big. For Khachanov, if he plays extremely solid, like we know he can, and he has struggled, I have to be honest, this year, as I said, with form. But if he is able to play a solid match, then I think it will be difficult for Kyrgios, because he can serve well Khachanov, he can return well, he can battle you from the back of the court, he can play aggressively, he's got decent hands. We know Kyrgios has got incredible hands in the net. So there's a lot to his game. He can defend pretty well as well. Khachanov, the shot tolerance, as I said, is a lot better than Kyrgios' so he's got a good all-round game. If Khachanov plays an 8 out of 10, I think he wins. And because I don't see Kyrgios playing better than an 8 out of 10, if I'm being honest, for himself. I think an 8 out of 10 for Kyrgios is better than an 8 out of 10 for Khachanov, but I don't think Kyrgios will hit that. I think at the moment he's hitting, the max he can hit is 7 out of 10, if we're talking about his max level being 10. So, yeah, as I said, I think Kyrgios needs to try and hit that level and then probably hope that Khachanov is playing the way that he's been playing this year, I think it's fair to say, because I don't think he's hit an 8 out of 10 already, Khachanov. I think he has been around the 6s and the 7s and maybe even the 5s, if we're talking about his level. And it's a very arbitrary way of talking about it, but I think it's the best way just to very quickly talk about where their levels have been at. And I think Kyrgios against McDonald, he is probably a 6, I would say, around that, if I was to rate him out of 10. So yeah, if he can get it up a little bit to a 7, then I think he's in a good position against Khachanov. Prediction-wise, look, I think it's difficult. I think it's going to be a difficult match for Kyrgios, I'm going to be honest. I think it will go 3 sets. I think a tiebreaker will be in there as well, potentially. Given the courts are a bit quicker, they're lower bouncing, I'd like to go with Kyrgios. The question is what is going to be the wrist. If he starts feeling the wrist as well, then it's difficult, but I will assume that he's going to be fit. I'm going to go a bit bold here. Because Khachanov has not been playing well this year, I'm actually going to go with Kyrgios in 3 sets. I think it's a big ask, but I'm going to go out there on a limb and say Kyrgios in 3 sets. Let me know in the comment section below what you think and why. Thanks very much, guys.